Question number 1. A. Fill in the blanks choosing the correct alternatives given in the brackets. Number 1. Up to 18th century, Dash was regarded as a dark continent. Now the options are Asia, Africa, America. Correct. It is Africa. Up to 18th century, Africa was regarded as a dark continent. Number 2. In Africa, Dash was the first European country established permanent colony. Options are Spain, England, Portugal. The correct option is Portugal. In Africa, Portugal was the first European country established permanent colony. Number 3. In Kenya, famous leader Jomo Kenyatta started Dash movement. Now the options are Mau Mau, Swadeshi, non-cooperation. The correct option is Mau Mau. In Kenya, famous leader Jomo Kenyatta started Mau Mau movement. Number 4. King Leopold acquired huge wealth in Dash state. Now the options are Congo, Kenya, Ghana. The correct option is Congo. King Leopold acquired huge wealth in Congo state. Number 5. Dash traders were to bring slaves to their nations. Now the options are Portugal, America, Spain. The correct option is Portugal. Portugal traders were to bring slaves to their nations. 1B. Match the following. Column A. H.M. Stanley, Nelson Mandela, Leopold II, Jomo Kenyatta. Column B. A. King of Belgium, B. Kenya, C. Africa, D. American journalist, E. India. Answer. Number 1. H.M. Stanley was an American journalist. Number 2. Nelson Mandela matches with Africa as Nelson Mandela fought long battle in Africa against colonization and discrimination of colors and ethnic. 3. Leopold II matches with King of Belgium as he was King of Belgium. Number 4. Jomo Kenyatta matches with Kenya. Jomo Kenyatta was from Kenya and started the movement Mau Mau against British rule. Question number 2. Answer the following questions in 20 to 25 words each. Why the Europeans concentrated their attention to Africa? Answer. The European nations concentrated their attention on Africa because the African countries were rich in the natural resources. There were huge deposits of gold, silver, diamond, iron and coal in Africa. Number 2. In Western imperialism, what effect took place in industry and profession of Africans? Answer. The countries in Africa became providers of raw material and market for the finished goods of the Western imperialist countries. There was decline of indigenous occupations and industries. The closure of the industries added to the poverty of the people. Number 3. Write about the movement of release of Negroes. Answer. Movements were launched in Europe and America against slave trade of Negroes. Slavery was abolished in America and the slaves were released. King Martin Luther launched a movement against racial discrimination and equal civil rights for the Negroes. Question number 3. Give reasons for the following in 25 to 30 words each. Number 1. Decolonization started late in the African continent. Answer. There was lack of Western education and absence of the nationalist sentiment in Africa until the end of First World War. Africa was divided into a large number of tribes. This stood in the way of unified resistance to the foreigners. As you know, Africa was rich in mineral resources and the colonial powers did not want to give up control over these colonies. As a result, the process of decolonization started late in Africa. Number 2. Nationalism emerged in the African continent. Answer. The spread of Western education led to the emergence of educated class in Africa. They became acquainted with the nationalism in India. As a result, nationalism emerged in the African continent. Number 3. The European countries turned their attention to Africa. Answer. The African countries were rich in natural resources. There was huge deposits of gold, silver, diamond, iron and coal in Africa, because of which European countries turned their attention to Africa. Question number 4. Answer the following questions in 30 to 40 words each. Number 1. How did the new middle class react to the process of decolonization? Answer. The new middle class began to think about freedom. They participated in the national movement. They became economically strong and opposed the slavery system. They supported the inclusion of Western education system in their country. Number 2. Why did the European colonizers start to decolonize? Answer. The European nations had become considerably weak after the Second World War. They were not in a position to retain control over their colonies. The newly independent countries of Asia expressed solidarity and supported nationalist movements as early as 1953 at Bandung. The principle of self-determination was included in the UN Charter. The UN urged the imperial powers to give up their control over colonies in Africa. The USA and the USSR supported decolonization process. The UN appointed a special committee in 1961 to expedite the decolonization process. Question number 5. Answer the following questions in 60 to 80 words each. Number 1. Give detailed information about colonization in African continent. Answer. The explorers like Mungo Park and David Livingstone published articles and books on interior Africa. This drew attention of the European towards Africa. The Europeans became aware that Africa is a vast continent with rich mineral resources and potentials for colonization. This led to competition among the European nations in the 19th century to acquire colonies in Africa. By 1914, the whole of African continent except Ethiopia and Liberia was colonized by the imperialist European nations. Number 2. Give detailed information about the slave trade in Africa. Answer. The slave trade was carried out since medieval period by the Arab traders in the coastal region of Africa. Portugal was the first European country to enter into the slave trade. The European traders took advantage of ignorance and the rivalry among the tribal communities to promote this inhuman trade. In fact, the slave trade was one of the reasons of colonization of Africa by the Europeans. These slaves were sent to the colonies founded by the European nations in the American continent as they were physically strong and hard-working. The Afro-Americans are in a large number in the USA. President Abraham Lincoln abolished the practice of slavery in 1861. Slavery was banned by the League of Nations in 1921.